City of Tacoma stormwater inspections with Kevin Brennan. He's worked for the City of Tacoma Environmental Compliance Group for the last 9 years, performing source control inspections. The past 3 years, he's been the environmental compliance supervisor for all general inspections.
Hi there. Thank you, Royce. Thanks for having me. I'll give you guys a quick background of City of Tacoma source control program. It's been going on since about 1995. We have 10 inspectors in our source control program. 5 of those inspectors are for our pretreatment group for our industrial wastewater users, and the other 5 are in our general business inspections group. Our general business inspections group manages the inventory and inspections and enforcement in the geographical space in Tacoma. So we have 4 general areas. And today we're going to go over our approach to managing it, inspections, our general introduction to a business when the source control rep shows up, our common inspection challenges and how we overcome those, announced and unannounced inspections, the benefits each of those types of inspections provide, failing or passing inspections, the decision making behind that, a failure rate of inspections and the re-inspections that follow. Finally, we have enforcement. How do we accomplish voluntary compliance at the lowest level? We'll start with our inventory and the general structure in our database. We have a company. That company is either regulated or it's not regulated. We have assets, public or private. All assets are under a company. So sometimes we create a shell company. So for public assets where we have just a street where it might have stormwater features, we create that street number and address and create a company for it. Our inspector structure, for our area inspectors, we assign 4 geographical spaces. So we have a southeast, northeast, northwest, southwest region. They manage all of the private businesses in that area, all the private wastewater and stormwater assets. They also manage spills and complaints. We have a 5th inspector who manages all of our public stormwater assets. He brings new assets into the database, so he creates a company homepage for them. And we also assist customer service in our billing department for wastewater and surface water. So he fields that work and checks on businesses and properties who have just been developed and, are they at a place to start receiving that stormwater bill or the wastewater, and also manages the spills and complaints that we respond to. So our inventory is always changing. We don't stop in the first of the permit cycle or the end of the permit cycle and assess what we have. We do that every year through these processes here. So we have a routine business inspections where we knock and talk. It identifies, yes, this business still exists, or no, it's been replaced with a new one. The new assets, when they come in, that 5th inspector, he creates that company homepage, he completes a business inspection and determines if we've replaced a business or if it's all new altogether. Our area inspectors survey their area. They're very familiar with it because we've broke it down into 4 smaller sections. They usually kind of can pick up something new and stop and update our database if it needs to be. We have a program manager that manages the user survey program, and he also does plan review for wastewater treatment devices that come in. So if we have a new restaurant coming in, they have a grease device. He takes a look at that, and just through that process, we bring in new businesses. Our spills and complaints bring us to properties. We help update our system, make sure it's accurate. And finally, we have the user survey program that is managed by a single individual. He mails this user survey form out to every known business. And as tax and licensing identifies new businesses, he reviews that information, sends this form out to them. And the basic information we get off of it is just a general understanding of what operations are conducted at the site, how they use water, if they have a non-domestic discharge or a domestic only, how is wastewater managed at that facility, do they generate dangerous waste, an idea of their chemical use and storage, and how they manage vehicles on the property. Is there maintenance done, or are they washing vehicles as well? After this form comes back complete, he will create a company for it, he'll put it in the database, and it sits there. The area inspector will go in, grab that company, go out, do an inspection, and verify the information is accurate. Sometimes an LLC will be formed, and it's at a business that already exists, and there's no reason to create a new company. So just use an example, McDonald's, it's a franchise. New owner takes it, they fill out a business license. It looks like we're creating a new business, but we're really not. So in that circumstance, we would leave it McDonald's and move on. Our GIS map inventories our assets and our business dots. See if I can get a laser going here. Those dots are our company dots. These are our spill dots. For our spill response, this is a wastewater device. Stormwater devices with the S's. And newer infrastructure where we have plans showing wastewater, they get added to the map. But in general, we don't expect to see that. This is really helpful. So you're planning your day, you're going to go out and do a business inspection. You can see what assets are around you. You may see that there's an asset next door, not even associated with a business that needs an inspection. And so you might, take advantage of that logistics advantage you have. Also, though, with the spill responses, it's telling if you see 5 of those dots on there. There might be something reoccurring that you want to stop and talk to the business about. So from the 10,000 foot level, we have what's called the manager's dashboard, and we can track the inspection progress as we're moving through the year to make sure we're meeting our compliance goals and our permit requirements here. The inspectors each have their own dashboard as well to track the work they're doing. That's the work that's in their geographical space. The workload's not balanced. Some areas have more assets or more companies than other. For example, we have a port inspector. There's pretty much no grease in that area. But somebody that has the north end, we have densely populated areas that are full of restaurants and grease. And so it's a little imbalanced, but we make it work. On this dashboard also, you can see their spill responses. So you've got 39 spill responses. Sometimes that workload gets disproportionate and somebody does a lot of spill response and it may affect their general inspection work they do. Some lessons I've learned with managing inventory and tracking KPIs is setting quarterly KPIs early in the game and allowing yourself to pivot and change as the year goes on. Setting annual goals and then permit cycle goals. For an example of that, our permit cycle goal for us is we want to hit 100% of our inventory over 5 years. So that does require a little extra inspection, but what it does, it helps us in an event we have turnover, we have new staff, we need to do training, COVID hits, it gives us some buffer. Documenting your KPIs outside of your database. So if you're relying on your database to give you the numbers you need to report at the end of the year, or you need to pull up at any given moment, if that database has a glitch or something doesn't run right, you may not even notice it. So we have thousands of things in our database. If something goes off, I'm not going to notice it. So by tracking it on a spreadsheet, I'm more likely to see if something doesn't track. New companies and assets. I think it's important to have a process for bringing them in. So our user survey program, it works good to an extent, but having that extra touch of having an area inspector go out and verify all this information and make sure that the database matches what the information on a piece of paper says is really helpful. Typical introduction from a City of Tacoma source control rep, we really emphasize keeping things simple. Okay, we learn fancy acronyms here at trainings like this. We read about it. We have the SWIM, the NPDES permit, we have FOG, we have all these acronyms. They don't know what we're talking about. So there's no expectation that we come in there and sound really nice and complicated. Keep it simple. A standard introduction to a business starts with my name. My name's Kevin Brennan. I'm with the City of Tacoma, Environmental Compliance. Immediately hand him my business card. I'm going to start that relationship of you're giving to him, sharing information. Explain why you're here. I'd like to conduct a stormwater inspection at your facility. The City of Tacoma has a municipal stormwater permit with the Washington State Department of Ecology. Under this permit, the city is required to inspect and inventory all potential pollutant generating businesses. Sometimes you get a crazy look, and that's where you just make the connection. When it rains, the water comes from your property onto the city, into the city system, and then we let go of it into this waters of the state. And under those conditions, the conditions that allow us to do that is this permit process and this inspection. It's usually a good time to pause though after you say your introduction. Sometimes they want to go sit down, they want to talk further. Other times they're like, what do you need to see? Follow me. Talk about the benefits of announced inspections versus unannounced. Most of our inspections are unannounced, but not all of them. Benefits of an announced inspection: when there's limited access, there's somebody that's going to be able to help you get to parts of the property you may want to see, or in a built part of the building. Large, complicated facilities, having the right person on site who knows the business inside and out can go a long ways. Records. Sometimes you need to review records if there's disposal you need to see. It's not something they might immediately have, so having the right person there to prepare those for you is really helpful. Also, if you come across compliance issues, you can address it with the right person while you're there. Some of the benefits of an unannounced inspection: if you have a site that you have known compliance issues, it's good to just sometimes stop in there and see how things are going on a regular day. It's not necessarily a gotcha moment. It's just to see how they are, if they're following the rules that you've tried to establish. It's reality. It's nice to see conditions unprepared. Just see how the business is operating day to day. I have a business I visited, and as they were trying to figure out who it was that could facilitate the inspection, the guy was on speakerphone and he said, "Well, why didn't they tell us they were coming? We could have cleaned up." Not that they had anything to hide. It wasn't the problem. It's just, we really just want to see the way the business is operating as is. Flexibility. If I have a scheduled inspection at 11 and something comes up and I have another one at 2, what am I going to do between that time? It just really throws your day for a curve. But it also provides a flexibility. If you're driving your area and you see something that you can't unsee and you need to be able to stop and talk and maybe inspect a little bit further, it gives you the ability to do that. We try to practice rolling our areas and just looking for things that we maybe wouldn't see, just driving down the main pass. If you set yourself up with 3 inspections, you're going to go to that inspection, and you don't want anything to get in that way. You might start developing blinders so nothing interrupts that. Some common inspection challenges we encounter is weather. We're on the west side of the mountains. It rains a lot. That can be a good thing sometimes. A little bit of rain helps you understand if the storm system's working and everything's flowing the way it should be. But at the same time, if it's a 1/4 inch of rain in a couple hours and you're trying to facilitate an inspection out in a parking lot, it can be an uncomfortable inspection. Timing of an inspection. First thing that comes to mind are restaurants, but also like to think about businesses. If they're opening at 8, I don't want to be at their door at 8 o'clock when they're opening the door. Give people time to start their day, get settled in before you approach them. Just access to properties and structures in general. Sometimes we don't have the right tool on us. Sometimes somebody doesn't know how to open something that we don't know how to open or access. There are properties where there's multiple tenants and you're talking to a business here, but then he does some business over in this other part of the property and the property owner has the key to the gate. So that does happen. Mobile businesses are another one that are kind of a challenge. We have mobile washers that do like truck washing. They are permitted through our department, through our wastewater permitting group. But your average business that, like a pressure washer, a cabinet cutter, or somebody that cuts cabinet countertops, for example, that come into Tacoma, we don't have a formal process to manage that. So driving our areas, driving down back streets, you encounter somebody doing something, say pressure washing without BMPs, or cutting a countertop on a driveway and letting the slurry run down the road. That's an opportunity to formally address it and document that you talked to this company about it, so that if they're ping-ponging around the city doing this, at least you've started that we've asked you not to do this process. Talk about the decision-making behind passing or failing inspections. First things we want to know is if something needs to be cleaned or maintenance needs to be performed, we generally are going to fail the business inspection. If there's an illicit discharge, likely we're going to fail the business inspection. Same for significant housekeeping issues, or if BMPs are needed, such as a spill kit or bulk fluid containment. Business processes need adjustment is another thing that we, to give you guys an example, I guess you guy starts a detail shop and he's washing cars, and he can't do that there. We have to change how you're doing this process. We'll look at that. Here's an example of this would be a failed business inspection. There's concrete dust all over the yard. It has nothing to do with necessarily the business activity of a gas station. So when you bring a gas station into your inventory, you'd be thinking petroleum spills, et cetera. So this is completely unrelated, but nonetheless, it's something we need to address. So this is something we need an outcome. We're going to have to come back for that outcome because it's not going to be accomplished in the next hour. Here's an example of a waste cooking oil bin next to a fast food restaurant. Obviously, just the mess itself needs to be addressed, but the inspector working on this did a really good job of trying to figure out what's going on. Is it a capacity issue or what? It turns out it was not a capacity issue. The tank had plenty of room for grease, fog, but there wasn't a strainer for the solids, and so it clogged up the screen on top of this, and employees just began dumping it over the top. So, and the waste hauler that was hauling it, they didn't want to come out and dump it if it wasn't full yet. So there's two things happening. But again, we want to fail it until we see conditions improve. Example like this here, you see. We have an auto body shop here. That open bay door, they have a designated wash bay with an oil water separator. They're all set up to do everything right. And on this day, they expanded their car wash practices out to the parking lot, causing the soapy water and stuff to impact the storm system. So this is one of those discretionary ones. Like, it's a quick, easy fix to stop doing it. We're also familiar with this business. It's on a busy road. So this one was discretion, and this could be a pass, a conversation, and a document that conversation occurred, and keep an eye on the business. This is just to look at our inspection loading for actually just the 4 inspectors. This doesn't include our public assets. But half of our inspection are stormwater assets, about 770. Wastewater consists of oil water separators and fog. It's 300. Do about 480 inspections, business inspections. The graph here is just to illustrate kind of where we want to be. So we'll just talk about business inspection. So if we have 2,000 businesses that are regulated, and I need to go to 20%, that's my 400, but something's going to fail, something's not going to work. In this instance, we have an 18% failure rate. That brings us up to 470, but there was actually 480 because while you're at that one business, you stopped and talked to another one. There just will be extra inspections. And this creates a nice buffer. But the idea is that we successfully get through a year ago, we've touched 20% of our genuine inventory, the goal of ours. But the biggest point is that under that model, it just requires more inspections. So if you have that troubled site, you go back there 3 times and that happens 10 times, you've got 30 inspections in theory that you could technically go, we're good for the year. You could do that, but it's a slippery slope, in my opinion. All right. So some of the enforcement strategies we use is build a strong foundation. So clearly set expectations and a compliance date. I will be back on this date to check on things. And this is what we need to see. Don't make it vague. Don't just say whenever. Set them up for success. Be consistent with your message and your expectations. Follow up when you say you're going to follow up. And use escalating enforcement if you're actually going to use it. Don't use enforcement as a weapon or intimidation. Only go down that road if you're actually going to do it. Otherwise, keep it in the recommendation space, or we would like to see space. Be reasonable and discuss possible options, and be a resource whenever possible. Here's an example of accomplishing the being a resource and being reasonable. So on the left, we've got an auto detailer who just started his business. And that's his dad actually out there helping get the business going. And it's a problem. So we get a spill complaint, we show up to the business and we say, you can't do it this way. You know, you can capture it somehow and discharge it to wastewater, but nobody really knew how to accomplish that at the site. But I knew of a business in the area that had a wash pad they weren't using. So I went to that business and I said, hey, I know this guy, he needs a wash pad. Would you be interested in letting him lease your space? He said, absolutely, get a hold of him. It worked out great. That's a picture of him on the right now running his business properly. So keeping a good relationship with the business that you're interacting with can help you connect other people. This doesn't happen every day, but I thought it was a great example to share. This is a machine shop, and they sometimes collect this cutting oil. It's not oil they generate like a lube shop might for, an auto shop, but they generate it, and it's convenient for them to set out on the back and not deal with it, as well as set the fluorescent bulbs out. With the bulbs out the back, that tells me they're not throwing them in the garbage can, so that's good. They just need to store them different. So this is an easy fix. Can you please take those fluorescent bulbs, store them indoors? And the drums, you have two options. That either needs to be disposed of, or we need secondary containment. That containment might include the indoors of your building, depending on what you have going on there, but they didn't want to use that space. The third piece kind of this is in the South Tacoma Groundwater Protection District, and industries that have bulk fluids like that need a permit, and that costs money every year. And they weren't interested in doing that either. So it incentivized them to just dispose of the oil. So I took this training called verbal judo, and it apparently came from this Dr. Thompson. And he emphasized the importance of not focusing on people who are different. We should focus on how people are the same. All people want to be treated with dignity and respect. They want to be asked rather than told. They want to be told why they're being asked to do something. And they want to be given options rather than threats. And everybody wants a second chance. And I really believe if you practice this in your inspections, you'll get the positive outcomes that you're looking for. That's the end of my presentation.